Teachers were given an initial survey to determine pre-existing attitudes and uses of data. Teachers were then trained in the use of Data Director Data Management Module, or DMM. 2 months after the training, the teachers were surveyed again to check for any changes in their attitudes or behaviors in terms of student achievement data. Finally, 6 teachers participated in a focus group at the end of the year, where they discussed the ways Data Director did or did not influence their instruction this year. The surveys were done on paper, but were also made available through Google Docs' form feature. All paper surveys were entered into the form for easy counting. Each free response question and the transcript of the focus group discussion was examined and coded for common themes as they related to the research question. The initial survey revealed that all teachers participating believed they used test data for planning their instruction. The majority of those teachers, 16 out of 18, reported using teacher-created assessments as a source of data. 5 reported using standardized test data, although the DMM had not been implemented yet. Finally, 2 reported using department-created benchmarks, although no policy had been put in place regarding the creation of benchmarks. There were only 2 from their departments to make this claim. Teachers mostly reported using their data to remediate students who underperform, as well as to adjust their instruction during a unit as students needed. The teachers were given training on the DMM and some basic data use strategies. Teachers were emailed links to the STAR release test question site and to the Data Director login site. On the day of the training, held in the computer lab, they were first asked to visit the STAR question website. The researcher demonstrated how to find questions based on standard cluster. The researcher then trained the staff in the Data Director interface. The first report the teachers learned how to run was a cluster scores report. This information was then used in conjunction with the STAR website to find questions that teachers could use to prepare their students for the CST exams, matching student weaknesses found on Data Director to the clusters listed in the STAR website. On the second survey and in the focus group, many teachers reported not finding the available data to be relevant. These claims came from electives teachers in the second survey, but interestingly, from core teachers during the focus group. Teachers found it difficult to link separate course standards together in a meaningful way, and in some cases there was no data, or the data that was available was too old to be useful.
My focus was on geometry and couldn't really carry forward their Algebra 1 CSTs and performance there. A lot of the standards don't quite carry forward. Looking at their overall CST scores or anything like that. I didn't really do that in help. But
many teachers reported not knowing what to do with data if it was provided. One first-year teacher compared using data to normal lesson planning, claiming she was still trying to get a handle on the latter. Mostly, though, it came down to an issue of technical training on the DMM. Teachers reported it too unwieldy to navigate and sometimes confusing. As a supporting counterexample, one teacher who did have experience and training with Data Director found success in using it to motivate her students.
I didn't get a chance to get to it. I think I'm going to pull my first-year teachers during all this because I just sort of wanted to focus on building my curriculum first and then revamping it next year.
I feel like the standards for English, I don't know if you feel this too, but I can't look up just commas or...
Oh yeah, it's tough to look up because the way they're organized.
It's a really weird organization system and I just had trouble with that. I'm a little bit baffled by how to use it since we're talking about training.
We do have a bank of questions. It's almost too big. We bought 3 different banks.
you're talking about the Data Director. Well, and that was one of my big issues with it. Well, it's not how big it was, just like the ease of like accessing it.
I think because we got Data Director towards the end of the year, we were looking at those big piece assessments, trying to get ready for CSTs.
Yeah.
Whereas from the school that the school I just came from, we were doing it well, I was doing it like on a weekly basis. I mean, you could do it as,
Yeah.
you know, a quick little quiz, like you said, aligning it to the standard,
Right.
you know?
And
Okay,
that's-
and then do I have to, you know, reteach?
Right.
Or is it just this one or two that I have to do?
Yeah.
And so you can take, you know,
Custom tailor.
custom tailor and take that, okay, we're just doing this, and you can just do a 5 point, you know.
And then
Some teachers created assessments with the DMM in order to have data that was relevant to them. Others used it in deploying classroom strategies such as flexible grouping. Overall, teachers expressed a desire to have more data in order to gain a greater understanding of their students beyond just their subject matter.
What I did, because of being the middle school teacher, I didn't have very much data. 8th graders was not very much, and obviously 7th graders I didn't really have. So what I did was I used the data director, did like a pre-test based on the released questions, and then did a post-test, and then I did my review, kind of what you were saying, figuring out where the strands were that each one of the students were weak in. And in fact, I even individualized it into groups. So it wasn't just an overall class going, okay, we're all going to do this. It was, okay, this group over here is showing up that they are weak in this strand. And so I did more practice work for them in that. And that seemed to help when we did the post, and then hopefully preparing them for the CST. So that was how I used the data director.
Look at about 20 of their CST scores. I was looking at my lower students to see if they had a common weakness, and overall a lot of things are low, but I noticed that it was either vocabulary or grammar. So when we did CST prep a little bit the week before, I focused, I had different types of worksheets, but those kids got those or got to practice with it, and sometimes they wanted a little bit of, what can I do to help my grade? So I gave them a little packet, and I told them, okay, let's talk about this, and tell me where grammar rules go there. So that was a little helpful.
I know this is kind of, but that's what I did with that pre-CST, post-CST. So they actually did a growth chart.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew exactly what strands they had to work on or that they were weak on. And then they visually were able to see their growth, which was really exciting.
It prompted me to think about more succinct and specific groupings. So I used that a lot for jigsawing groups together so I could put certain individuals. I looked at their biology scores because biology and chemistry are different, but yet they indicate the same type of thought process. So I took some of the biology students that I knew that were exceptional, and I would put them in teacher positions. They would teach small groups. And so that helped a lot.
I would love it if students had access to it. I was just thinking about NWEA test scores, and when I first started working here, each student had their test scores, and some of them got a printout of what they were missing. There were very specific standards and questions. I'd say, you know, this kid had trouble reading letters or writing letters or anything like that. It would really help if the kids knew what their weakness was. I look at their CST paper, and yeah, it's not very helpful at all.
But I'd like to see a correlation between math scores and science because I'm seeing a distinct connection. My kids that have the higher math scores, and I don't know if it's because their sense of logic, their sense of processing, their cognitive thought process, I don't know what it is, but they seem to come more equipped in any way I can adjust whatever strand it is that enables them to do that from the math side. So if I look at the math and I look at their biology scores and I look at their math and their chemistry scores, I can kind of go, huh, I need some way to correlate that and say, what are they missing here that we can put in there to increase this side of the equation? It's kind of what I would use the data for.
So you're talking about not just like training in terms of how to use it, tech training, you're talking about like more curricular, pedagogical training as well.
Exactly, find some way to connect.
I would love to kind of dive into it more in the summer and see what I can do. And at least I think for me the tool would be to look at students' history to see where their weaknesses are, and then to really focus on those for the following years in their curriculum.
There was a real desire from the teachers to have access to student achievement data. Teachers are eager to use data, but it's often only based on the assessments they're creating themselves. However, in order to create and use data more effectively, teachers need to be trained. There were many limitations, but the most prevalent were the technological problems that often derailed the training of the staff. The initial training was crippled by such a slow connection speed that the researcher could only demonstrate to the staff how to access the DMM, and then ask them to explore the site later on their own time. The participating teachers claimed that the DMM software was not easy for them to navigate without training. Are teachers being included in the process of designing the tools they're expected to use? The first-year teachers on the panel seemed wholly unfamiliar with the use of DMM software. Are our teacher training programs adequately preparing future teachers for this aspect of public education as it grows in prominence? Teachers want to use student data to enhance student achievement, but need the training to be able to more consistently generate relevant, timely student data. Districts, schools, and teacher training programs need to commit to preparing teachers with these skills as they become more important to 21st century schools.